Late shows in the Champions League last night ended in contrasting fortunes for Premier League clubs. Tonight it's the turn of the Manchester clubs, with the Europa League also on the agenda this week. The JD show's going fully continental tonight, so hop on board the Euro train. Yes, provided you were actually able to work out where to watch it, the Champions League certainly didn't disappoint as it kicked off for 2018-2019, and we're about to get stuck into the English angle on this week's fixtures, starting off with Bobby Firmino's blinder for Liverpool as the Brazilian sealed a win only a one-eyed fan would begrudge them. But missed chances and another defensive lapse cost Spurs and left Pochettino ranting at the press. While these two crosstown rivals are united in their desperation to recapture past glories. And welcome to the show. It's time to get across to Michelle Holland, who's on feedback duty as ever. And Michelle, we might be talking about Champions League tonight, but again, we have to go back to what we did on Monday, which was talking about Spurs, because their problems continue, don't they?
Yeah, they sure do. Unfortunately, things didn't work out for them at the San Siro. And that prompted one of our viewers, Michael, to share some thoughts on Facebook. Here we go. He says, plus, they just lost against Inter in the Champions League. I understand it's hard for them with the financial restrictions, but if they don't find any solution by January, then a very tough season is ahead of them. Spurs are back on the agenda, so we would love to hear your thoughts on them, as well as Liverpool, Manchester City, Manchester United, Arsenal, Chelsea. You know what? Anything goes tonight, John. It's going to be one of those shows. Anything goes, any show, Michelle. I think it's as simple to say as that. Let's get to our guest from the UK, and that guest is James Robson, the Manchester correspondent for The Standard. And James, we're on a bit late tonight because we've just had incredible drama in Asian Champions League football in Suwon in Korea. Really as good as anything we might have seen in Europe. But you're in the Champions League frame. I presume you're focusing on Manchester. Are you later?
Absolutely. I'm going to be at City versus Lyon tonight. When you saw the draw earlier this season, I think the Lyon ties were about the only ones of any real interest. It's a pretty easy group for City. We're expecting them to go through pretty comfortably.
All right, we'll talk about City in a bit more detail later on, James, but thanks very much for joining us tonight. OK, so let's get into the show, and what we're going to do is we'll talk about the Manchester assignment tonight later on, but we'll review what happened on Tuesday night, i.e. The first match day of the current Champions League season. I'm just going to bring you this double headline here, which was fascinating from The Guardian today, which summed things up. It was a night of late shows, a 3-2 with a late winner from Firmino for Liverpool, but then, of course, a problem for Spurs, ongoing problems, and Pochettino losing his cool after they conceded a late one at the San Siro. All right, we'll come to him in just a moment, but let's get straight into those results, confirming what happened, and then we'll get James's thoughts on both of these teams. So as I said, it was that late goal. It was Firmino, who, remember, had only just been past fit after that nasty eye injury, to see off a PSG side who were second best, my opinion, and we'll develop that in just a moment, throughout really. Meanwhile, at the San Siro, Spurs were wondering how they blew it. 1-0 up, they squandered chances. Icardi scored a beauty, and then it was Misson from a set piece scoring and making it a 2-1 victory on their return to Champions League football. So that's what happened there. A quick look at the headlines, and not surprisingly, when the guy's just about had his eye poked out in the previous weekend's match, the headline writers decided that they knew exactly what they wanted to do, and that was to go with all of the headlines that related to Bobby Firmino's injury. So a quick look at that one. Liverpool beating PSG, and that's a significant result for them. Firmino plays a blinder. There you go. First eye reference for you there. On they went and on they went. And eye drama was another headline that didn't surprise me too much. But the reality of this one was that actually they were the better team. And even the Frenchman did it. France Football Magazine came up with this one saying this PSG really didn't deserve better. They got close, but didn't deserve, and tellingly a picture of Neymar hanging his head. All right, James, the point I'm going to make here is one I made on social media earlier on, that actually Liverpool were comfortably the better team, but they're also developing a habit of making life uncomfortable for themselves. The fact of the matter is that they've got firepower, and I just wonder who's likely to go further in this competition. So, James, if I could come across to you to start off with that point. It does rather look, doesn't it, as if PSG are wonderful going forward, but they don't like doing the other stuff, whereas Liverpool have got some work about them.
Absolutely. I thought last night was exactly why we love watching Liverpool. I've got to say, they're the team that I look forward to watching most in the Premier League, maybe even across Europe. And it's because of their frailties. You know, like you say, last night they should have won comfortably, 5-6 even, and they end up needing a late winner. But that's what makes them so exciting. That's what we loved about Sir Alex Ferguson's United teams. It's that fallibility that makes them more exciting.
I'd like to talk about the one potential negative for Liverpool in this one, because they gave us a reminder of their incredible firepower, Sturridge deputising and showing what resources Klopp has. But of course, everyone has gone mad on social media about the so-called Salah celebration, or was it a celebration? You know what I mean. He gave an interview to France Football earlier on in the day in which he spoke about perceived greediness amongst the strikers. And James, the point I want to make is this. Firmino scores, Salah is supposedly seen throwing down a bottle. Of course, the anti-Liverpool crowd go, oh, well, there we are, look at that, what's he doing here? How can anyone possibly know? How can anyone know what he was thinking? Because it looked as if he was celebrating, but he's still a bit frustrated, isn't he? Because they aren't always passing to him, and he's not quite at his best.
Absolutely, but I think this is one of those that's been read into far too much. It doesn't look great, does it, when you see it just on camera, perhaps out of context, but we've seen the way people celebrate. Sometimes people celebrate so aggressively. If you take that out of context, they might look furious as well. I think Salah is a force for good in football, let alone for Liverpool. I really don't think he's the type who'd be upset at seeing his teammates score a late winner.
All right, James, thank you very much. Let's turn our attention now to Spurs' side of this particular story. And, well, as you can see here, looking at this one, they somehow succumbed. A very different story from their last trip to the San Siro, of course. Spurs capitulate even at the last after Vecino seals the Inter fight back. But the story moved on from that one, because there was far more than that to this game here, because it follows those two defeats for Spurs. It follows frustration, really. Apocalypse cow, in case you're wondering. Do you remember there was that line, that strange one from Pochettino, about a cow watching a train? Yeah, that's where that headline came from. But really, they built on this one. Poch fumes at questions over absent Trippier. Now, this is what I want to bring you here. This was Mauricio Pochettino ranting at journalists who asked him whether he regretted having left quality defenders at home, given what happened in the match. This is what he said.
Why disrespect the players that are in the pitch? You can blame me and say, Gaffa, you were so rubbish in your election of the starting 11, but please, don't disrespect the people or the players are playing because it's my decision. Of course, Trippier, Alderweireld, we have 25 players, and you believe that, and sometimes you behave with your question, you ask me like only can play 11 and another 13 or 14 player are rubbish, I don't know. Sorry, but I am so disappointed, because I am a person that respect you a lot and respect the player. And when my decision are to play with 11, you must respect my decision, because I am the manager, and you cannot disrespect. You show too much disrespectful to the player that play in the position that the name that you are telling me now.
All right, well, that was Mauricio Pochettino getting very angry. Respect. Where did you hear that before? Jose Mourinho, who incidentally had said Spurs deserve to get a little bit of the pressure if it's a fair world right now. He wasn't being nasty to Spurs. He was just saying, that's what I expect to see. Look at this, a kick in the teeth, I said on social media. And I said, you've got to take your chances. So what did everybody make of Spurs' performance? Well, you're about to find out just now. What did James make of it, more importantly? James, back to you with this one. And you know, they had their chances. I mean, Poch said that's as well as they've played this season. I think he's not that far wrong, but again, a mistake at the back.
Yeah, I think it's fair enough, and we're seeing, you know, against Liverpool at the weekend, they could have got something out of that game as well, and missed a few chances. But when things aren't going for you, these type of things do go against you. I understand why he was frustrated afterwards, and why he had a bit of a pop at the journalists. But he's got to know those questions are going to come when you lose a game and you leave out big players. You're going to know that you're going to be questioned on it.
When they miss chances, James, you start thinking about Harry Kane. Now, Lamella's come out and made an interesting point today. He said, look, you know, the guy's not a machine. You know, we've all got to chip in when we can. Whilst you're answering this question, we can actually show you a little bit about Harry Kane, because we looked up some stats. The Daily Mail went to town on this one. They sort of said, look, another tough night for Harry. As many touches in his own box at the San Siro as he did in the penalty area. And, you know, I'll put some numbers up here. He's not scoring goals in September. That much we know. It used to be August, now it's September. James, he looks a little slow, doesn't he? His feet aren't as quick. He's reacting a little bit more slowly, and that's a problem for Spurs.
He does, and that would be a problem for anyone who's got Harry Kane, because no one's going to have a better understudy than Harry Kane. When you've got him, you've got to play him, and if he doesn't score, you feel it. And despite what Lamela said, the thing about Kane is he is a machine. That's exactly what he's been. So as soon as that drops off, we start asking questions. For me, I think he's not looked the same probably since that Colombia game at the World Cup. He got kicked all over the place in that game, never looked the same in the World Cup, and he hasn't this season either.
Michelle, what do the fans make of it all?
Yeah, a couple of losses under Spurs' belt. Now they are in for some criticism from the viewers. Let's get to Victor's comment, which is coming on Facebook Live. Turns out Spurs' victory over Man United was overhyped. It wasn't so much Spurs were so good, but Man United were that bad. Went through the next 3 games in a narrow defeat in all of them. Is it a coincidence, without Hugo Lloris, their first choice keeper, that they lost these games? There's an interesting theory right there.
Yeah, certainly hasn't helped without the goalkeeper. Imran's up next, is he?
Imran's up next. Let's get to that comment now. Klopp proved once again his Liverpool team are a threat to any team in the Champions League. Anfield is a fortress, and we have witnessed many magical nights of late. It'd be great if the team can kill the tie early. Yeah,
it would be great. I don't think they're going to do that this year. I think, as James rightly said, it's part of the magical Liverpool mix right now that they have this hysterical element to them that is going to come up in games. Right, OK, that was last night. We'll turn our attention to what happens in the second night this week of Champions League action, which means our minds will be on Manchester.
On the other side, we stick with our European theme and focus on the Manchester clubs. How do you rate their chances of winning Europe's biggest prize? Get in touch. See you soon.
As night fell over Singapore yesterday, the Boomerang Bistro at Robertson Quay was lit up by shiny spoils, Manchester City's shiny spoils of their last domestic season. A fantastic season that, of course, saw them in unprecedented form as they lifted the Premier League trophy, which came to Singapore, as it has been doing all around the world on its trophy tour. And for company, it's got a good friend in the shape of the Carabao Cup, City's other victory. An opportunity for those City fans to get up and close and personal with that silverware, and they'll be hoping that the team follows before too long. Right, there we are. Welcome back. Let's turn our attention right now to what City and Manchester United, for that matter, will be looking to do in terms of the big one in Europe, the Champions League. Both Pep Guardiola and Jose Mourinho would love to win it. The headline I'm going to bring you here to illustrate this one: Pep longs for a third crown on Euro stage. That one coming from the Manchester Evening News. But obviously, it's not just he. He is a man who's won it a couple of times. Let's start with Jose Mourinho, who has had to wait a little bit. He got off to such a flyer in his career in terms of European success. Porto, remember, of course, getting him there, winning it again with Inter, and then he's got a UEFA Cup and a Europa League more recently to his name. However, the well's gone a bit dry for Mourinho in terms of Europe. Look at that, his last 10 knockout round games, just 2 wins in that time and 3 losses. Last knockout round win came in 2014. Last away knockout round win, actually, funnily enough, at Manchester United, came back in 2013. So as they prepare to take on Young Boys Bern, I put this one out today. 2 managers with a proud Champions League record, unable to go all the way in recent seasons. Who's the more likely to lift the trophy again first? This is what you had to say. And James Robson of the Standard is patiently waiting to answer that question as well for me in Manchester. James, I just want to ask you this. Some people are simplistically saying, oh, they've been left behind, these two. The likes of Klopp and others have succeeded them in the terms of the way they play football. It's not that simple, is it?
No, it's not. Everyone's been left behind by Barcelona and Real Madrid, frankly. And basically, in recent years, over the last 10 years or so, more often than not, the team that has either Lionel Messi or Cristiano Ronaldo wins the Champions League. So yeah. I think it might be more about those players than the managers.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right there. Let's turn our attention, shall we, to Manchester United and what they need to do in terms of this competition here. Because for Manchester United, they come into this one knowing that there's going to be a problem with a plastic pitch, potentially. There's been an awful lot of talk about the plastic pitch from the Manchester United camp. Jose Mourinho saying that will impact the way he selects his team. A quick look at the headlines here. The selection of Rashford, or at least Jose said he's selected to play in this game, seems to dominate much of the headlines. A domestic ban, but he, of course, can do the job in Europe. Otherwise, after that one, which came from the preview of that match, we had Young Boys synthetic pitch dictating his player selection ahead of the contest. And this is what interests me, James, about this one. I know Jose Mourinho said, I've had my say about this one. That's just a comment about defenders from Gary Neville, but I'm interested in the pitch situation here. They can't allow this to get in their heads, can they, in terms of what they do in this game, Manchester United?
Absolutely not. I'm amazed that they're talking about it as much as they are. This isn't like back in the 80s when Luton had a plastic pitch and it really did make a difference. I mean, most pitches now they've got some element of artificial to them. They train on artificial pitches. I really don't see this being an issue. I'm interested to know which players as well are apparently more suited to plastic pitches. That's news to me.
I would imagine the theory would be the less heavy ones, but you and I are just guessing. Yeah, it's a far cry from Luton, as you say. OK, it's a point they're making. One thing I would say as well, James, and this is important to make this point as well, is that they've shown an upward trend. They've seemed to be going in the right direction, United, in domestic football. Will it continue in Europe?
It has to. It has to, because for me this is an absolute must-win game. And the draw that United got their group with Juventus and Valencia as well, that is a group of death. And frankly, they can't afford to drop any points against young boys. If anything, they've got to be looking to put a lot of goals on the board to help them.
Let's have a quick look now at the game that you'll be covering tonight. That's that City-Lyon match here. So that's an opener for Manchester City, who got as far, remember, as the quarterfinals before losing to Liverpool last time out. Let's have a look at Pep Guardiola. We did this with Jose Mourinho earlier on, and there's a similar story here, although, of course, in Pep's case, it's been a case of winning so much with Messi in particular to the fore earlier on, those 2 Barcelona triumphs. And then it didn't happen for him at Bayern Munich. It didn't happen for him so far at City, but look at those semi-finals. Couldn't make it all the way there. Then it was a round of 16 exit. Then it was the quarterfinals, and his last 24 away knockout round games might give a pointer as to what goes wrong. In that time, 9 losses and only 5 wins. So something about the Guardiola format hasn't quite worked in recent times. OK, well, they find themselves taking on Lyon, and as far as this one is concerned, the headache for him concerned Aguero and Mendy. Mendy, who didn't play at the weekend. Aguero suffered an ankle injury. And James, I don't know, I mean, this was a headline that came out several hours ago. Any update? Who do you expect to play for them tonight?
I think Aguero is more likely of the two. Aguero did train yesterday. It was notable that Mendy didn't. Given what happened to Mendy last season, the injury he had for so long of the season, I don't think they'll take any risks on him. They don't necessarily need to take any risks with Aguero either, particularly with this period with so many games coming thick and fast. It's not like they haven't got cover.
All right, thank you very much, James. Michelle, some feedback from the viewers. There's always feedback on the Manchester clubs, isn't there?
You said it. Lots of feedback. We're basically pitting Pep against Jose here, aren't we? So that's always going to garner some feedback. Here we go with Jerome's. Manchester City, in my opinion, will still struggle this year in the Champions League because how much they were dominating in England, the squad is not yet that deep to go all the way. Interesting point of view. Zafran, both Manchester clubs will reach the round of 16, but progressing further might be an issue. Pep will be hoping they won't face Liverpool, and Jose needs to make major changes in the attacking tactics. He should threaten opposition's defence more often.
What I think about this is that in European football, pragmatism is often the way to go. And idealism maybe doesn't win you stuff. So I'm not sure about this. I wouldn't be surprised if Jose does all right this season. OK, we need to take a break. When we come back, we'll turn our attention to the Europa League, because there's another couple of English clubs that will be going in that one on Thursday night. So stick around. We'll take you on a tour of the backwaters of European football next.
Coming up, we talk Europa League with Arsenal and Chelsea taking centre stage. But with backstage antics making headlines, could this upset Arsenal's apple cart? We discuss when we come back.
I was only joking when I said Europe's footballing backwaters, because if you've qualified for the Europa League, you're a proper club, aren't you? Well, if you're wondering about that, Ukraine. Arsenal find themselves travelling. Let me just give you an idea of exactly what they've got themselves into in terms of not qualifying for the Champions League. They're playing against, well, Sporting, we know all about them, but otherwise, Vorskla, that's going to take them off to the Ukraine, and they've got a trip to Azerbaijan for Karabakh. So that is an esoteric, shall we say, Group E. Let's just quickly give you some of the stories for Arsenal behind that first game. Funnily enough, for Unai Emery, it's not really been about him so far at all, because the headlines have been dominated by behind-the-scenes things that, frankly, aren't all that interesting unless you focus on the business side of football. Gazidis makes a really interesting call in going to Milan. These two guys promoted, but that's boardroom level. Yeah, that's, you know, okay, a fans group. Fans groups exist to be worried about things. Oh, it's a bad time for the club. This is not good timing. I don't know. Something odd has happened there, but it's about the football, isn't it? What happens on the pitch? That's what this is all about here. So that's what we're going to do right now. We're going to get some thoughts of James Robson on what happens here, because as far as Arsenal are concerned, I would imagine that we're going to be looking at a much changed lineup. I would imagine Petr Cech won't be playing. There's an opportunity to seriously rotate the football team here. And who knows, maybe even give a couple of promising youngsters a go here. So one of the things we might be seeing is Leno in goal. We'd probably be seeing change at the back here as far as that is concerned. Lichtsteiner, not a promising youngster by any means, but certainly a squad player coming in here. Where it might get interesting is through midfield into the forward line. And here we go then. So Torreira perhaps a start there. Smith Rowe's the interesting one. Emil Smith Rowe. We saw him in action in Singapore in the ICC, and possibly Welbeck to start here. James, what do you think? An opportunity for Arsenal, as any other team in this competition, to really mix things up?
It is. What I would also say, though, is that let's remember that they've got a manager here who is an absolute expert at this competition. So you would have to say Arsenal are serious contenders. And when you look at Arsenal's season and for Emery, what he wants to achieve, if that's a route back into the Champions League, that might be their best chance.
Yeah, I think you might be right there. I wonder what Chelsea are going to do. What's fascinating about Chelsea right now as they prepare to open up their account in this competition is that they are in Greece and they find themselves now, after a flying start, a 100% start to their Premier League campaign, possibly looking at an opportunity to use somebody like Ethan Ampadu, perhaps. Again, an interesting set of assignments for them. Bate Borisov, we've grown used to seeing them in European competition. Videoton from Hungary, also in their group there. So once again, not the top tier clubs, but a challenge for Chelsea all the same, particularly if they rotate heavily. What I was talking about here, James, and I'll come straight to you with this one, is, you know, the midfield options they've got somewhat limited by injuries right now, the likes of Fabregas carrying a bit of a problem. But it'd be good to see Ampadu play, wouldn't it? It would be good to see Hudson-Odoi, if he's actually part of this European squad, play as well. It'd be good to see them mix it up a bit.
Absolutely. And I think Chelsea have got a real opportunity here. Because if I was Chelsea, I'd be thinking, we can use this competition to blood those youngsters, to give them a chance, to get so much criticism for not playing the youngsters. Use the competition for that. Because for me, I think they could win the title this year, but not if they're bogged down in a Europa League campaign. If they can just concentrate on the title, they might well be the surprise package. So why not use the Europa League to actually get some time for these players who never get a chance at Chelsea?
Yeah, and it's not just about the kids, because you've got players like Ross Barkley. It's as much as anything, it's using your squad, but it's also being clever, giving N'Golo Kante the rest when he needs it. Jorginho, surely somebody that they're going to say, hang on, back off a little bit in certain competitions here. James, I'll come back to you just quickly on this one. Does the Europa League still serve a valuable purpose? Because you've just said Chelsea could win the league outright. Obviously, they'd be expecting to qualify for the Champions League anyway. So it's not quite what we've seen in recent times, is it, from clubs who've struggled to make the top four?
No, it's different for different clubs. It's horses for courses. Like I said, Arsenal, that could be a great chance for them to get into the Champions League. And in that sense, it might be their most important competition. It was great for United the other year as well. But for Chelsea, I think Chelsea can do things domestically, and therefore they don't need that as a distraction.
James, thank you very much for that today. I know it's been a bit of a rush through an awful lot of European football, but enjoy your assignment at the Etihad tonight. Take care. See you soon. That's where James takes his leave, and we've got just enough time to get a little bit more feedback away, Michelle. Someone being funny down there, Dharmendra?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know either, Dharmendra. Jerome, here we go. It's a must-win tournament for Arsenal if they want to return to the Champions League, because I can't see them finishing in the top four this season.
Well, that's a bit negative early at this stage, isn't it?
Yeah, pretty early, isn't it?
Yeah.
Imran's comments as well. Sarri didn't rate Europa League that highly when he was at Napoli in recent seasons. He could use his squad players in Europe this season. Ampadu and Loftus-Cheek could thrive in Europe.
Yeah, it's a good point mentioning Loftus-Cheek as well. I mean, I mentioned Barkley. I always think of Loftus-Cheek as a first-team player, but he hasn't been that, so that's obviously that. It's funny, isn't it? He said Sarri didn't rate that, but if there's one manager who really did rate that competition, mainly by winning it again and again and again, it was Unai Emery, so maybe he is perfectly suited to it. Michelle, we need to take a bit of a breather. We waited a while to come on air tonight, and since we've been here, it's been go, go, go. But thanks very much for steering us through all of that feedback. Thank you very much for joining us, and enjoy the football when it comes along later tonight. Bye now.